Do I look pretty?
Kind of, not really.
Ah, come on, Pushpak. How have you been, dude?
What's up, man? It's been
Not much.
it's
How have you been?
yeah, it's awesome. Not really, but yeah, it's kind of good.
Not really. Yeah, not really at all. I feel that.
Yeah,
What's new? How's India?
yeah, India is good, man.
Yeah,
Like just like USA, I guess. I don't know.
lockdown.
Yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
been a year since we met. Like I think we met in November, right, in Goa. It's almost been a year, man.
Yeah, it was like mid November. And so yeah, this was a year ago was my first week in India when I came out. And so it's been a year since I've gone to India and just under a year since you and I met.
Yeah.
So what have you been doing? You've been doing this podcast. How's that business going? Are you still working for the startup?
Yeah, like a lot of things happened. I started I worked with the startup I was working with, and this podcast I started recently, only in lockdown. It's been a couple of months only, and March. So actually in March I came back to my hometown. Right now I'm at hometown. I left Pune. So
Yeah.
so pandemic happened. That's why I started this podcast, man. What about you? How's it going, man?
It's been crazy. Obviously, I came back to America and started working again, and then the whole pandemic started.
Mm-hmm.
And so that shut everything down. I lost like 90% of my workload, which is like pretty much, I feel like everybody's been losing work. So I lost a lot of work. So I
Mm-hmm.
really had to start pushing my business online and in person. And so that's gone pretty well. Started doing teacher trainings. So that's a good payday.
Okay.
And besides that, started dating a lady. That's been fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I
life's been,
noticed on
life's been
Insta.
okay. Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I started yoga class, man. Like as you suggested, I thought this is the time I should do it from home only. So it's online only, but yeah, I'm having fun. It's
Do you know,
amazing.
like, where are you doing it? Is it my classes online, or are you taking other classes? Or are you doing an online app, or what?
Online, online. There's an instructor in Goa only. She's in Goa only.
Ah, you're trying to get it with the Go
Yeah,
instructor,
yeah.
huh?
Start. What are you drinking?
Drinking some White Claw.
Is it cold over there?
It's very cold. You want to see outside? So I'm just doing it in my van right now. And so it's like misting and cloudy out right now. So you can
Okay.
see it's just gray and ugly. And
Hmm.
so right now I've got the heaters burning. I've got lights on. And we're
Cool,
good. Is
cool,
it
cool.
cold out by you right now?
Not really, not that much.
Yeah.
Maybe after a month it will start. Getting colder here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excited to see you again.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this, man. Never thought, this would happen. We could do this.
Well, that's the cool thing about living in this modern technology age is that we can start doing all these crazy things like this and still stay
Right,
connected. So,
right, right. So let's talk about, how did you become a yoga man? Tell me about that. Tell us about that. What's the story?
yoga man. I was working for an oil and gas company. And when I was
Okay.
working for the oil and gas company, I was just very corporate. The whole joke here in America is we were saying I was pushing paper clips, meaning I was doing a lot of paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really nice because I got paid well. I was living the dream downtown, had a nice space and everything. But in America, oil and gas tanked about 6, 7 years ago now. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was so young. I think at that time I was 24. And so I was low man on the totem pole. They had to make some cuts to keep financial limits accessible for the people that they could pay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was one of the first people to be let go. And so when I was let go, I was still lifting. That's something I've always done. I played hockey growing up, and lifting's always been a passion. And so I was at a gym out here in Colorado in America called Lifetime Fitness. And so I was a member there. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was coaching youth league hockey. And so they just asked me, they're like, hey, do you want to be a yoga teacher? I was like, sure, whatever kind of deal. And it was just kind of a big joke more than anything. Well, not a joke, I should say, but I didn't take it that seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just really wanted a free membership more than anything. And so went through the yoga teacher training, paid a lot of money to do it. And then I realized it was one of those things that I started needing. And so there's a lot of things in yoga that show you to look at the imperfections in your life. So things that we call samaskaras. And so when I started seeing the things that I was putting band-aids over, there's a lot of things that happened in my childhood and whatnot, and everybody has those stories. But I realized that I was putting band-aids over the things that I did not identify with going out and drinking, partying, and having all the fun 20s kind of stories and whatnot. But then I wasn't growing past the pain that I had underneath. And so yoga was really putting a spotlight on all the things that I should focus on. And so I started jumping into yoga, started as a part-time teacher, just kind of doing stuff here and there. And then it slowly started working up a full-time workload, got into a full-time workload, which is really cool, and been teaching full-time for the past 3 years. So I've been teaching for a total of 4, full-time for 3. Granted, we're in the COVID era, so a lot of my workload has fallen out because here locally, 20 yoga studios have closed down just due to everything that's happening. So I lost a majority of my workload, which was no fun by any means, but it's really pushed me to grow in different directions. So it just kind of is what it is.
So how was your life before yoga and how it's different now?
Life before yoga, I was in my young 20s. So I was working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 kind of deal, and cruising through, making good money at the time and doing a lot of drinking and partying. And I'd say I had a lack of discipline. I was definitely living in the moment, having a good time, all that stuff, but I lacked discipline for personal growth. And so one thing that I'm doing now is much more discipline and making tons of growth. And so it's just been a big maturing process more than anything. So
why do you think people should do yoga, and how it can help them physically or mentally?
Physically, I think is the most obvious that everybody will point out is that you should do yoga because if you know biomechanics, that if you feel little pains in your body, more than likely, if you look at it biomechanically, that you can solve a lot of those problems. So one thing here in America and probably everywhere is a lot of people have lower back pain. And so when you really start to look at the anatomy of the body, whether it's hip flexors, hamstrings, it could be IT bands, QLs, the more that you start to get to know your body, the more that you can solve the problems physically. And so if you are coming for the physical aspect, which a lot of people start off doing, is that they're going to aid their recovery and aid their body by doing stretching, because most of us are really tight, and the more that we can open up, the more that we can relax. But one of the big reasons why people should definitely do yoga is for the spiritual aspect and the fact that you start to dive inward. And when we start talking about consciousness, or anything along the mind, especially one thing that we all deal with is mental health. I think that's something that you and I had talked about when you and I were hanging out, especially being in your 20s. There's a lot of us doubt ourselves. We don't believe in ourselves. We don't have strong mental ability. And so a lot of yoga is stepping back instead of reacting to everything that's happened to you. It's responding to life. So they give you techniques and they give you different things to follow. And most of the yoga that we do follow comes from a Hindu background. And so you can follow the Yoga Sutras, which is the yamas and niyamas. If you're familiar with those, if you're not familiar with the yamas and niyamas, essentially in very layman's terms, it's like the 10 Commandments. If you know Christianity, if you don't know either of those, though, basically it's just ways that you should live your life to be a better person, that you don't harm others, and you also keep your internal state and control. And so I think most people come into yoga wanting the physical aspects, and that's why we should, well, that's one of the easiest ways to see benefits. But the more that we come to yoga classes, we see the long-term benefits, and long-term benefits are all in your mind more than anything. And so it gives you mental strength.
Yeah. How do you define spirituality and what exactly it is? So you said consciousness and all this stuff. How did it come from yoga as well?
The spirituality?
Yeah.
Yeah. With the spirituality, it's interesting because I'm not necessarily, I wouldn't call myself a spiritual individual, but the whole idea, and especially speaking to, and you heard my little rant earlier this week on social media, is when we're talking about Hinduism, we're talking about Atman, and Atman is not Brahman, but Atman is our true selves. And so the more that you start practicing yoga, the whole idea of yoga is that you're supposed to be settling the vrittis, And the vrittis are supposed to be fluctuations within your mind. So like thought process, ego and whatnot. But the more that you start to settle your vrittis, the more that you can really see past all the BS in life, and you really start connecting with your true self. So when you start to connect with your true self, you realize that there's a lot more to this life than that we ever anticipated. And so I think that's where the spiritual connection starts happening. Yoga came from, at least the ones that we practice the most, is from a Hindu background. There is Buddhist yoga, there's Taoist yoga, things that I'm not as well studied on. But things that I understand a little bit is that it's ultimately the same thing. And so the more that we can get into our bodies and out of our minds, the more that we realize there's something else. So even in Christianity, they have the Holy Trinity. It's like what? The Father, the Son, and the essence. I don't know. Do you know the Trinity though?
No, no, right, no idea.
You should look at, this is where you need a little sidekick on the side that shows us the Trinity. So the Trinity is three aspects, essentially, just like in Hinduism, body, mind, and spirit. That's essentially the Trinity in Christianity. It's like the Holy Spirit. I don't know. I'm bossing that one up. That's for sure.
I was wondering, like, and I have personally noticed it as well, that yoga comes from India, right? Essentially,
Yeah.
but I think people are more aware in United States about yoga rather than India. I have seen here. So, and there's this assumption in what?
I was clapping. Keep going.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And another thing is, what I think is, some of the Indian, like some, not a lot, but some Indians think that yoga is for women's, like not a lot. But when I see, because in my yoga class, my yoga instructor is a lady, and all the other people, like fellow people are ladies only. So I'm the only guy over there, man. I don't know why.
yeah.
So what are the reason for these two things? Like, it started in India, but still more famous over there. And
So if we start to look at the history of yoga, yoga did originate in India, and originally yoga was a practice, obviously by Hindus, and it was to be like a monk, essentially. So if you really start to study yogic philosophy, they tell you to renounce basically everything, renounce your sexual relationships, renounce like certain desires towards anything in life, whether it's food, external things that you want, or internal things you want. The more that you chase things you won't get. And so the whole idea of being a yogi is to be a monk, which was a pursuit of a male. And so that traveled on for thousands of years. And then a teacher named Krishnamacharya came in, and Krishnamacharya came in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And he is who we call the godfather of yoga, essentially. And so he was down in the southern part of India in Mysore. And so he had all these students and whatnot, and they would go perform certain like trick postures in the central square. And that was doing like handstands, scorpion pose, all these crazy things, like the things that you see on Instagram now. He was doing in these big plazas to sell yoga, and he got people in. But the funny thing is that you're mentioning that mainly only women practice yoga, and that's the same deal here in America. And so I just started a teacher training on Tuesday. I'm the only guy in the whole teacher training. When I go to most classes, I'm most of the time the only guy in. And so there's been a big shift, because in the mid 1900s, probably from 1930, don't quote me on this, to 1960-ish, because only men were allowed to practice. No women were allowed to at all. And so Krishnamacharya used to travel around and do all that stuff. And then he met the king of Mysore and made this style of yoga called Ashtanga yoga. And so it's supposed to be for the military of Mysore, which was young boys and the men in the military of Mysore. It was a very regimented, very difficult, very challenging practice. And then as it started getting more popular, one of his students, Patabi Joyce, took it under his wing and basically made it his practice. And that's like, he was known as being the Ashtanga master teacher. And so he had a daughter named Saraswati, which a lot of women, obviously in religious backgrounds coming from the Hindu side of things, is that there are a lot of Saraswatis, but she is Saraswati by Patabi Joyce. And she was actually the first woman, one of the first women teachers, I believe. But the biggest thing that she did is she started doing intermixed classes. So she would teach classes to men and women. And from my understanding, what I've read is she received a lot of negative feedback after doing men and women. And so then at that point, more women started practicing, and there was this huge domino effect. where
Mm-hmm.
now women basically dominate the industry, where it started out as like a male only practice. And so when you're talking about what you're going through, is that you don't see a lot of guys there. It's just kind of like how the popularity is. For me as a yoga teacher, my biggest thing is trying to make it accessible,
Mm-hmm.
and what women and men can do. Just talking about sexes, not identity or gender pronouns, just men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Um, our bodies can only do so many different things. And so a lot of male bodies can only do so many things. Like I can do X amount of push-ups. You and I could probably do a lot of push-ups, but not a lot of women can, because they have different body setups, different shoulder strength, but they're also more limber most of the time. This is
Mm-hmm.
gross generalization. So there's definitely people that are outliers, but
Yeah.
looking at the mass population, it's that, it's a lot of these classes are very difficult for men as well.
Oh. Man, I got inspired by you only, so that's why I joined the yoga. Otherwise, if I would have only been here, if I haven't met you, I could have never joined the yoga, man. Seriously, you inspired me for that, man. I think,
Well, you are somebody that's hungry for personal growth, though. I don't know a lot of people your age doing everything that you're doing. You really push yourself to grow at all possible ends of life. And that's why you're doing this podcast. It's why you're probably jumping into yoga. That's why you're starting new jobs. And so it was cool to meet you, but you just needed to meet somebody to push you in the right direction, because you are very self-driven and it was going to happen anyways.
thanks, man. That's so kind of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell us about. Yeah, I wanted to know about you. You started this project, right? You bought a car and you plan. You told me about it in Goa also. That's what you are planning. You wanted to travel around the US and in this car. So what happened to that? How it's going?
It's going really well. I want to say I'm about 2 or 3 weeks from finishing everything right now. And that's what's crazy, is like one of those things in life, is that if you start making goals and you actually set up a step process, you can totally get there. And so building this van is something I've talked about for a couple of years. When you and I met, it was more of a dream. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I hope I can do this. And so a lot of things definitely fell in my favor, but a lot of things just kind of happened how they happened. And so when I went to India, I was there for 3 months. I traveled like 22 cities in 3 months.
Yeah.
So I traveled more in India than I've ever traveled in the United States ever.
Yeah.
And one thing that I do want to do is start traveling a lot more, because I get to meet amazing people. And so you are one of those people that when I think of India, you are probably the first person I think of, because it was such a great time hanging out those like 3-4 days that we did. But I don't think that's just Indian people. I think you're a great person, but I think people in general are
Yeah.
really amazing. You just have to meet them. And so one thing that we have here, I think in any country, because when I went to India, I met people from around the world. We all have the same problems. Nobody likes their government.
Mm.
Nobody really likes each other because of what we read on social media. But when we
Yeah.
go out into the real world, we actually have noticed that we're all okay for the most part. And so there's definitely people you're going to meet that you don't like, but I want to meet more people. And so one thing I have grown up in is I'm not like crazy about America per se, because of what people have told me, but I
Yeah.
want to go meet them in person, because I know like if I meet anybody in the world, I can probably make friends with them, and then I can also learn something from their culture. And so going to India, I learned a ton about your culture, and even
Mm.
going from the north to the south, east to the west. When you and I met, I was just living in Rishikesh for the past basically 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so even meeting you, you were even telling me the difference between northern India and southern India, and you were basically my information man about all of that stuff. And so it was really cool to see the side. But you guys were so incredibly kind, as in when I say you guys, I mean Indian people, because you and I just met on the beach of Goa, and we just started kicking it off. And I think we just hung out for 3 days straight, which is so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, one thing that I did talk about was the van build. And so kind of giving a little demo. That's the driver's seats, obviously passenger. I made these doors out of cedar.
Mm.
And so everything's just kind of wood. We have lights up and running. I have a stove set up. That's my water that I pulled out. Right
Awesome.
now, I have the stove running to keep heat in here right now. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have fans set up in the top, in the back, and I have my bed set up. We just put a wall in, and that's my bathroom. And so I just have some last little decorative things to do,
Mm.
and we're off. But the thing that kind of stinks right now is the yoga industry is not doing that well. And the fact that what I was going to do is hold workshops. And so I was going to do like a handstand workshop because that's one of my specialties.
Yeah.
But also doing other things such as like yogic philosophy and doing like sequencing strategies or like mentorships for certain people when I go and travel. But everything's been stopped. But I've had to spend so much time in this span that it wouldn't have been feasible for me to do both. So I'm hoping in 2021 I can start traveling around the US and start teaching a little bit more. But I tell you what, I miss India a lot. So I want to come back. So I'm thinking maybe in a year, maybe two, I'm coming back.
Yeah,
I'm
please
seeing
do,
you.
man.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, of course,
I'm
man.
gonna come and hang out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. We will travel India also. The
We'll
entire,
go
because
to what was the beach that we went to with all the dance clubs?
pardon?
What was the beach we went to with all the dance clubs?
Anjuna. It was Anjuna.
We met in Anjuna, but what was the one that was southern? Start with a B.
Oh, no, we went to Baga, then we went to Arambol.
Baga
Yeah.
Beach. Baga Beach was the one that we saw. We couldn't even see the lights finish at the end of the
Yeah.
beach. But one of the most beautiful places that we saw was that one. It had all the hanging lights below, and it was all wood. And I actually just saw the picture of that the other day, so that brought me back. I can't believe it was a year ago. It doesn't feel like a year ago.
Yeah, man, I was planning to move to Goa. Like I am planning to, but let's see, my parents are not allowing me. But I'm planning to move to Goa.
Okay, well, let's
Yeah,
plan it. I'll move there with you. All
yeah, it
right.
will be fun, man.
Let's
Yeah,
buy a retreat space. Let's get some money in
yeah,
because I can't buy property in India because you have to be Indian to buy property in India, is what I
yeah,
understand.
yeah,
So we'll buy property through you, and then we'll open up a retreat space, yoga, the whole 9 yards.
yeah. And after a couple of years, maybe, man, then we could move back to US. Then on your name, we could buy property, and then we could do the same thing in US also. Because I really want. I never been to US, man. I want to, come there as well.
Hey, if you plan a US trip, I will come pick you up in this. We'll go around and travel the US of A, baby. We could
That's a
do it.
dream. That's amazing, man.
We could totally do it. You just have to fly in, have some money to spend, and then we have a place to stay, and the van's mobile, so you can sleep anywhere.
Yeah, that's awesome. uh, what about the one thing which you are curious about yoga and about your journey about life? What's most you're curious about right now?
Where it's gonna go is I'm very curious on seeing what the future holds, I suppose. And so I feel like I have a good grip on how everything has been going, but I don't know. I'm just curious about the future, I suppose, which is not what you're supposed to do in yoga. Not
Yeah.
supposed to worry about the future, the past, live in the present moment, which a lot of my, being a type A personality, I'm always worried about growth and where things are going to go. But it's interesting to see the influences and how things are going. One big thing I focus on is the tradition of yoga and keeping it alive. And so I guess kind of rerouting back to one of the questions you had, though, that's what's interesting is here in America, yoga is really popular. But when I was in India, besides going to Rishikesh, Goa, and like Mysore, I couldn't really find yoga studios that much. And
No.
so, would you say that a lot of Indian cultures being very westernized is very corporate now? They're making businesses everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not as spiritual in India as it used to be. I heard from a friend out in India that if Gandhi came back, he'd be pissed off at everybody because it's gone in the opposite direction that he wanted people to go to. And the idea of not being corporate, not the idea of trying to do this efficiency madness and creating a system, but rather like following your eternal bliss kind of deal. So
but it is kind of needed, like in last 70 years, the growth that India did is phenomenal. Like it's not that much, but like I can see, like my parents told me when what situation they were living, like they didn't have food to eat. It was that worst situation, man. Like in India right now, because of corporates and FDI and all these things are getting much better. And right now it's awesome. Like the middle class is emerging, the upper middle class is emerging. So a lot of things are happening. The startups are booming. Like, and we are India is a socialist country, so like doing a business is tough here, and but still people are doing it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of hope in India. So let's see, man.
Yeah. Well, and that's my understanding is there's been a lot of growth. And so the one thing that people in America right now, at least I need to choose my words correctly just in case there's some very important people watch this. All right, Pushpak.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are very progressive and they think that Western culture is ruining yoga. They think Western culture is ruining some parts of our own society. But then
Yeah.
when we go out to India, you guys are being westernized and that you think it's good for growth. So it's interesting being on the opposite polarities because
Mm-hmm.
we're so westernized as in corporations, capitalism, and all that, that we think we should go back and start doing this stuff where it's about caring about community and not working for corporations, so on and so forth. But like you're saying is like, and one thing I witness as like being in America is these systems work though, is
Mm.
that there's not too many people here in America that are starving or families going through that. There are homeless populations for sure. There are definitely populations that are not doing as well. But obviously going to India for me was a big wake up call because there's a lot more people that are struggling out there.
Yeah, the majority of
But
Indians
not as
are into
many.
farming and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How's the
because
air quality now though? Is the air quality going better, getting better because there's not as many people doing stuff?
yeah, air quality in Maharashtra and in south it's already better. So you are in north, the air quality in north is not good. Like nothing is north in good.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Well, and if you come to America, it's about the North and the South, and we all talk trash about each other. So that's what's funny is in India
Mm-hmm.
doing the same thing. But I heard certain places in the North, it was the first time they've seen the Himalayas in like 30 years because the air quality is finally better.
Yeah.
But I bet that was only for a few weeks, and then it's starting. Are you guys going through like a second wave or anything out there? We're kind of locking back down a little bit.
So right now it's like we was the like recently we started, the cases started, getting below recently.
Getting below.
Yeah. So
So,
number of
so they
cases are decreasing. Number of cases are
easing.
decreasing. Yeah, easing. But I think the second wave will
Yeah.
come because right now there's a Dashera and Diwali. These are the major festivals in the country right now, and people will gonna go out. And I think the second wave could come. But now people
Yeah.
lost, like people forget about COVID, man. It's like all chill for them. No one is wearing mask. Like, like this is the situation here right now.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Indian people don't give up. They're just like, whatever, let's do it. It kind of like same in America though. It kind of depends where you're at. I'm in
Mhm.
a much more, I don't know, because there's conservatives and liberals here, but people are a
Exactly.
little bit more mindful. And so we have a mask order. You have to wear a mask if you go outside. They actually, in our main city now, if you're walking outside, you have to wear a mask.
Yeah. Here also in cities you will
And
have to.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely much different and interesting,
Mm.
but I don't know. It's crazy time to be alive, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is, man. Yeah, so I have one question for you. What did you learn from being a yoga instructor, which you wouldn't have learned anywhere?
How important it is to help other people because it's like one of those things is you don't realize everyone's going through shit and life is hard. And the more that I start to meet my students and get to know them, so they're going through a lot of very hard things and that they feel safe, they feel comfortable coming into my classes. And so when I got into teaching yoga, it's definitely more about me and the things that I wanted out of the practice and whatnot, or out of the
Mm-hmm.
teaching. But the biggest gift has been helping other people. And so when I get to see that a single mom comes to my class that is not having a healthy time mentally because she has been holding up too many things in her life, whether it's her children, her job, whatever's going on. But then she comes to my class once a week and she feels safe. Or there's been crazier stories where a person has had a stroke and they can't move their body they want the way that they want, and they come to the class because they feel safe and can actually move their body and so on and so forth. And so there's so many different stories that I've met, whether it's somebody losing a loved one to cancer, or if it's somebody that got a friend that committed suicide, all these horrible things that we all go through at one point in our life, or some, people come. But the biggest thing in life is finding healthy spaces to be safe in when you're going through a shit show.
Yeah.
And not running to the bar, go to getting drunk and doing all this stuff and partying all night, but actually going through and sitting with the shit that you've gone through. And so it's cool because when I meet a lot of the people that come to my classes, they're going through something. So who knows what it is. And so
Yeah.
the fact that they can come to my class and feel safe is very important to me.
So what is that one thing that you're like, teaching someone or your clients, something that happened to your clients which you never expected?
The craziest one I want to say is we had a student come into class. This is many years ago. And so I don't think it's inappropriate to say, because if there's something newer, I don't want to ever talk about it, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want a student that's going through something to watch like a podcast or something like this and like know that I'm talking about them. They might still be going through a hard time, but this is easily 3 years ago. And so I had a student that came into my class. Students' body language was very erratic, not making any sense. In certain postures, they were doing almost the complete opposite what I was saying. But
Mm-hmm.
more I started reading the body language, is I didn't think that they were trying to be disrespectful. I thought it was like a motor function problem, and that they couldn't like function the way that they wanted to. So let them do the whole thing in my class and whatnot, and everything was fine. And at the end of class, came over and said, they just had a stroke 2 weeks ago, and it was the first time that they left their house. And this is the first time, because they're like scared to be around people because they can't move their body the way that they wanted to. So that's why this individual put their mat at the back of the room, didn't want people to watch them. And I didn't like point the person out. I wasn't like trying to single them out and make them feel like they were bad or anything like that. And so they thanked me for just creating a safe space. And so I've got a few other stories like that, but it's just basically you have people come in, they're acting a little strange, things that you don't understand. And 9 out of 10 times at the end of class, they come up and tell you the crazy thing they've been through. And, that's the whole point, is trying to keep each other safe. So
What is your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
what is my biggest failure?
Yeah.
In yoga or in life?
I don't know, in life, in yoga, and what did you learn from it? So, or something that you learned also from.
So one thing when we talk about failures are the things that scare us. And most of the time we're scared to do anything when we fail. So I want to say my biggest failure, and I wear a wristband every day. Let's see if I can get it to actually show on there. I don't know if it's coming out straight on your end, but
Yeah,
it says
stay
stay
humble.
humble.
Yeah.
Stay humble. So I wear this every day because I started a business when I was 22, 23, and it was called Humble Apparel. And things went well, learned a lot, but the business did not continue to grow. Things for like apparel, one thing that I realized is that you have to stay relevant. You have to be producing new stuff all the time. So after I got through my first wave of orders, there's a lot of learning things or curves, such as like didn't sell, double XL products, or there's certain colors that didn't sell, or there's different fonts that people didn't like that didn't sell. And so my overhead was not the best. And so I had to go through my second wave. And before going to my second wave, I was like, screw it, let's not do it. And so it's something that I really put a lot of money, time, and effort into, and it completely face planted. But the biggest thing about life is you have to fail to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing, is that we always worry about our failures, but our failures make us a better individual. And so when I look at all my previous jobs, all my previous endeavors, whether it be business or personal endeavors, most of the time you do fail to some capacity. There's definitely been things in yoga that I failed at, whether it's like working for a certain studio, going to a certain training, not doing something on my behalf, but you have to use it as points of growth. And so I'd say my biggest failure was the business I tried starting, but now I'm running my own business. And so I have my own LLC set up, which is a limited liability company here in America, which
Yeah.
just separates all my assets away from me as an individual and puts it into a company. So if the company dies, I don't die financially as well.
Yeah.
But I learned that through the apparel company. I learned so many different things through the apparel company. And so although that it was my biggest failure, it was also my biggest point of growth. And most of the time our failures are our growth. So what about you, Pushpak? Let's talk about you a little bit. What is your biggest failure?
I think it was my startup only, man. Like I started a
Your
company in my
startup?
college. Yeah, I started when I was
Yeah.
19. When I was 19, I started a company. Not company. It was a small venture we could call. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I made a lot. Like that was one of the biggest mistake and failure. Not mistake, I won't call it. It was a good thing that I tried. I learned a lot from it, and yeah, that was it. Start doing a startup, and so it was an amazing experience of starting a company and learned a lot. But a lot of things happened. A lot of things are responsible for this. I was kind of lazy. I was in college and I was surrounded by people who are not into startups. So it also matters, the people you're surrounded by, you become one of them. Like I don't blame my friends for this, like how my startup failed, but they kind of influenced me. So there are lots of things, you know and I didn't had money also. Like I was 19-year-old, I was in my college. Like so yeah, that was my biggest failure and I learned a lot from it. Like I will have to make another video for it, so maybe I will make one.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. Well, that's the whole thing though. Especially when we're young, we're very driven to do certain things. But the thing I ran into as well is not enough money. And
Hmm.
so like a big wake up call to starting any business is that you have to have a good amount of money saved up. And the first couple years are the hardest. And
Yeah.
like you were saying, is that you have to have individuals around you that are strong and build you up and not individuals that are going to pull you down. And so that was one of the other things I learned from my business. Don't work with other people. Do not. And like when I start really listening into people who are business owners, you can have people who are investors who invest into your product or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
If you have somebody you really, 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 I'll say it again, really, really trust, you can work with them. But business is hard. And when money's on the line and stakes are in, it's very difficult. Whether it's like having like going into business with friends is difficult. Going into business with a person that is your partner is very
Hmm.
difficult.
Yeah.
Going into business with a stranger is obviously easier because you have less emotional ties
Yeah.
to them. But another reason why I love teaching yoga is I'm my own boss for the most part. I make my own classes. I do everything myself. No one is above me telling me what to do something else. And so that was one of the biggest learning lessons from opening a business is just do shit by yourself.
Yeah, that's the best part about being a entrepreneur or working for ourselves instead of working for someone.
So if you're going to start another business today, what would it be and why?
I don't know, man. It's a tough
Come
question.
on, come on. We're
Maybe
here
in
for the talk.
yoga. I will start
No, you
something.
can't do yoga. You haven't done shit in yoga. You have to
No,
do
no.
something you
Like
started with.
what I'm planning is I'm planning to start a AI, artificial intelligence of yoga. So there will be an app you can download it on the phone, and your app will talk to you and understand you, and will teach you yoga as well at your home only.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'd be
that.
interesting. You'd be putting me out of business. So watch out, bud. Now we're enemies. Quick. See
Yeah.
how quick that turned?
Actually, this idea I had like couple of days yesterday only. I was just thinking about it, but I don't know it's possible or not, and it won't make any sense to be honest. You need a human for that.
Technically, if you could get a computer to read a human's body,
Hmm.
then yes, it would work.
Yeah.
I think the technology to get a camera to even read a person's body would be very difficult. Obviously, computers process a lot faster than humans.
Yeah.
So if they could understand the biomechanics of muscles, everything, and how like ranges of motion and functionality, it could work. But you'd be putting me out of business.
Yeah. I won't do that, bro.
I'm
what
joking.
what we can do is we'll start this company together, man. And like I don't know. No, I don't know.
That's a big thing that's been popular. I don't know, like as of right now, there's online yoga is especially during the pandemic, is that online yoga is very popular.
It is. It
Um,
is.
but the biggest thing is having very big teachers
Hmm.
that promote and pull people in.
Yeah.
And so I've seen companies that go out and they try to start this online yoga business, but they don't have any teachers that anybody knows.
Right.
And
Right.
so it's really hard to sell. But that's also the trade-off is you could go pay here in America $20 a month and have some of the best teachers in the world for $20 a month.
Yeah.
And so it's a good business model, but it seems hard, but there's a lot of companies doing it at the same time too. So
Yeah. I was watching this documentary of Bikram Yoga. You know about this guy? He's from India
oh
only,
yeah,
and
I
he
know.
came to LA and he started doing yoga.
It's crazy. So yeah, Bikram came like, so he started out in like, I think like Calcutta. Do you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
He comes from the Ghosh lineage. Ghosh lineage comes from
yeah.
Calcutta, Vishnu Ghosh, also knew like Vivekananda, all those areas and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so Vishnu Ghosh is, I'm pretty sure you studied with Vishnu Ghosh. And then he came out to America, and Bikram's not a good person. So before, like nowadays, we can fact check everything. And
Mm-hmm.
so if,
Right.
Pushpak, you just told me, you're like, hey, I competed in the Olympics for, like for lifting and wrestling.
Mm.
Before, back in the day, I just have to like guess, or like it'd be hard for me to tell that you were wrong.
Yeah.
But now I can literally jump on my phone and put your name in and put like Olympics and realize that you've never been to the Olympics at all. But one thing that Bikram said is when he came here, he said that he was in the Olympics for lifting. He used to make
Mm-hmm.
all these grandiose claims that he did all these things that he never did. He was really good at lying. And he's a very powerful speaker and got people to believe him. And one thing in India, at least yoga in India, they're very strict and disciplined, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing when he came here to America, he was very strict and disciplined, and he used to talk shit to so many teachers. And so have you
Yeah.
seen the documentary on
Yeah. Yeah.
Netflix or
Yeah.
whatever? Is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah.
Like he legitimately would go into this room that was at 110 degrees,
Yeah. Right.
40% humidity, which is super hot. And he would just scream at his students the whole time. And people loved it. And it's a very
Yeah.
hard style of yoga, and it's very difficult. But then he started having these sex scandals come out.
Yeah.
And so he did a lot of very inappropriate things, is my understanding, which was unacceptable and not good. But he only got tried for civil court, I believe. And it was like not criminal. And so
Yeah.
there is warrants out for his arrest, but he can't be extradited. So when he knew things were going really bad, he just flew out of America and went back to India. If I knew that he was teaching in India, I'd probably go take one of his classes though, which I didn't know. Do you know what city he's in? He's still selling out training.
He's
Supposedly he's supposed to be one of the best
he's in
teachers.
India right
Doesn't mean
now.
he's a good person. He's
Are
in
you
India.
serious?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, man, if he's in Kolkata or not. Like his kids are in LA only, I guess.
He's
It's
in India somewhere.
okay. But his kids are in US. I don't know, man. I'll let's see if I can find him.
So like an analogy I like to use is, so like we like American football, not soccer as we call it here,
Mm-hmm.
or you guys call it football, obviously.
Yeah.
But my whole thing is like, you can be a good quarterback, but you can't be a good person kind of deal, or you can be a bad person too. And that's kind of like Bikram. Or if what's a position in soccer? Center midfielder, right? Is that a
Yeah.
position?
Don't know a lot about
So
soccer, man.
you could be a really good midfielder in soccer. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean you're a good person.
Yeah.
And so Bikram is a shitty person, but he's supposed to be a really good teacher.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't mind taking one of his classes to see. But yeah, he's supposedly done some really, 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 really bad things.
Yeah, so we were talking about the westernization which is happening in India. So you traveled India a lot more than me. So what
Yeah.
do you think? Like where we are going? What's your perspective as an American? What do you think about India? Are we doing it correct, or what we are doing right and what we are doing wrong? What do you think?
Right and wrong. I'd say I can't compare right and wrong
Yeah,
because
yeah,
this is the
yeah.
first time I've ever been to
Right.
India.
Hmm.
So I didn't see what India was doing previously, and my understanding is India's growing.
Yeah.
Obviously the north and the south are much different, and so I spent most of my time in the north. I went through Rajasthan. I hit, what was it, Jaisalmer,
Yeah.
Udaipur, Pushkar, Jaipur, and
Have you
obviously
been to
it's not in
Bikaner?
Rajasthan. No.
Okay.
Where's
It's in,
that?
it's in
Is that
Rajasthan
in
only.
Rajasthan?
Yeah, it's in Rajasthan only.
Yeah. Rajasthan food. Whoo! Oh my God, hot. Yeah. But then after that, I went up north and was in Rishikesh basically for like 6, 7 weeks. And then I went to the south. So next time I come out, I want to hang out in the south a lot more than the north, I think. In my opinion, the south was a lot more gorgeous.
Yeah.
Air quality was a lot better. But air
Mhm.
quality was also a lot better because I was right next to the beach. And so it seems like one thing is that people in India were much more kind than America, and that they would like let us in. But they obviously knew that I was a tourist because of my skin color.
Yeah.
So a lot of people came over and were super nice. I don't know how nice Indian people are to other Indian people, would be the question.
Yeah. Uh,
Biggest room for growth is stop burning things. No more burning things. No more
mm,
burning trash. No
mhm.
more burning poop or all the stuff in the fields. Because what's happening here in Colorado, where I live next to a bunch of mountains, and it got really
Yeah.
dry, and so we have a ton of forest fires. So we have all these huge forest fires that have burned thousands, like hundreds of thousands of acres now.
Yeah. California also
And
was
like,
burning, no?
yeah, so California is much worse than Colorado right now, much worse. And so, but when I go outside, I smell the smoke and it reminds me of India. And that's how bad, like, you guys don't have forest fires, but you guys are burning so much stuff that
Yeah.
it smells
Most.
like forest fires.
Yeah, man. If you come to Maharashtra and in south part, so it's not like that because you are in north. So in UP, in Delhi, Delhi has like one of the most pollution is in Delhi. I think world's most polluted city is Delhi.
Yeah,
Some North
India
Indians.
or Delhi is supposed to be one of the worst in the world.
Yeah, and you've been to
When
Agra
I was
as well,
reading about
right?
it,
Agra is also polluted.
yeah, I went to
Bro, entire north is polluted. I'm telling you.
yeah. But that's the thing that was crazy about Agra is because you go see the Taj Mahal,
Hmm.
which is one of the most beautiful things in the world,
Yeah.
and Agra outside of it is so beat up. Agra was
Yeah.
actually one of like
Exactly.
the most. Agra was one of the most beat up cities that I saw all of in India.
Damn. So you go to the
Yeah,
Taj Mahal and you see, man, this is like one of the most amazing building in the world. And then you come out of there and you see this. Damn, what the fuck is this, man? Like,
yeah,
you must be really shocked.
exactly. Is super shocked, and so I don't know. It's pretty crazy. It's hard. Like I don't understand it though, and that's the crazy thing. And so like I didn't see it in Mumbai, but apparently in Mumbai you'll have like $1 million houses
Yeah,
next to the slums,
right.
and there's just a huge disparity. And so that's kind of like Agra is you have like one of the most beautiful places ever right next to places that are not doing it like
Right.
well at all.
So
So
you have you been to Mumbai, Pune, or Bangalore? This is like one of the best cities in India. Like,
no, that was like the only places that I ended up skipping. So I was looking at Osho has a spot in Pune,
hmm.
and that's where like their original Osho space was or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
But when I looked it up, it was expensive,
yeah. It is, man.
like $300 a day,
Yeah,
which is crazy to think about. And so
yeah,
I didn't go there. I was tired of going to big cities, so I skipped Mumbai. And so since I
yeah.
skipped Mumbai and Pune, I didn't do anything else.
You did a good thing, man, because the city that I talked about, they have worse traffic than LA. Not, but kind of the same traffic as LA. You could, it's not good.
When I was in the
After,
airport at Mumbai, I think I bought a Kingfisher beer
hmm.
for 1,400 rupees.
Seriously, yeah, airport is expensive, man. They got taxes on shit.
Yeah, I was like,
And when you
nope,
came to
I'm good.
Goa, then what?
It's like 45 rupees. I was like, oh God. But the
Okay.
music, the trance music, no.
Goa is fun, man.
Goa is like crazy about the music. I wish we met the night earlier when I went to
Yeah, dude. Seriously.
the Royal Enfield Festival. That was the craziest thing I saw in all of India. I was just going to dinner, drove past this field, and there was hundreds and hundreds of motorcycles parked in there, and you could
Hmm.
hear the subwoofer going. I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm on an adventure. Let's go see what's happening in here. So I just started wandering in there, wandered in, and it was a free festival or like event, and I think they had like beers for like 35 rupees or something like that.
Damn.
It was nuts.
It was
So I had
rave
two
or
in one hand.
was it a rave?
No, they played hip hop. So, and I like hip hop being from America.
Yeah.
And so they played a lot of that, and they played some classic rock. No rave music at all.
So that's why I was planning to
See,
go to Goa.
that's what I want to do in life. Why do you want to go to Goa? Goa is so touristy.
I don't know, man. Like there
You
are
got to
some
go
places.
down to Alleppey. Go to
Yeah,
Alleppey.
yeah.
Granted, the wet season in Alleppey sounds pretty crazy. Are you in the wet season right now? Is it raining a lot?
No, it's like
No.
we are at the end of rainy right now. The rainy season is ending,
And
the winter is starting.
yeah, exactly. Winter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody that's from America listening to this, their Indian winters are still like American summers.
Yeah.
But then again, what is an Indian summer like? 100 degrees and super humid.
It's
Well,
like
yeah, you're in Celsius though.
you
So.
should come if you come to Central India or Delhi or North. It's super hot. It's super hot, dude. It's fucking hot. It could kill people, man. It literally people literally die in summer because of it.
What months are summer for India?
April, May, March. It starts
April
in
and May.
March. Yeah, it kind of starts in Feb, like March, April, and May is the highest heat you could see. May. And nowadays, like weather is really fucked up, man. Like you could see rains in any month in the year. It's not like
Yeah.
because of global warming and all. Like nothing is
Yep,
in
exactly.
it's kind of fucked up. Weather is fucked up.
Yeah, it's been interesting here. Weather has been very inconsistent as well. And so, but our summers are like June, July, and August. It's still hot in May, still pretty warm in September, but now we're in October. And so it's 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which means, I don't know, in Celsius.
Yeah.
I think that means it's like 28 degrees Celsius, I think. But then again, when I was in certain parts of India, I wanted to be at least 70. When I was in Rishikesh, it was always like this temperature basically the whole time.
Yeah, like man, I saw, I never been to US, but I saw Colorado is really beautiful, right?
Affordable?
Colorado, it's really beautiful, right?
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. So Colorado is very mountainous, and there's a lot of plains. So we have everything but an ocean.
Yeah.
So we've got desert, we got tundra, well, I guess we don't have rainforest. So we don't have an ocean and a rainforest, but we have forest, a lot of big mountains and stuff. It's a beautiful spot. I've always wanted to move other spots, but I really love it here. So every time, like when I came back from India, I was like, oh, I'm home, which is nice.
Is hunting legal in United States?
Hunting? Can you not hunt?
No, we can't. Like wild animals.
Because you can't have
like
guns.
Deer and stuff.
Yeah, hunting is huge hunting is huge in America. Colorado is one of the best places to hunt.
Yeah, do you hunt?
I've tried. I've never gotten anything. And so an animal that I've tried hunting is an elk, but I only did it for a year or two. Me actually killing an animal is very scary. I don't know if I could actually kill it, but the idea of getting good, healthy meat is why I'd want to do it versus like one thing that we're dealing with here is factory farming. And factory farming is very disgusting. And so I don't want to be a part of factory farming. So that's why I want to get into hunting. But as you know, in America, like guns and everything are pretty just...
Yeah.
Which
like
we're
school
having
kids have guns, right? In US, school kids have guns.
Not that crazy, but that's what it probably seems like for everybody else. But we've got 326 million people here, and there's like 350 million guns in the United States.
Damn.
So there's as many guns as there is people.
Nice.
It's pretty crazy. So I think hunting's fine and stuff like that. It's when you get into the military grade assault rifles and stuff like that, it seems weird. But hunting's cool. Hunting's hard.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Do you listen to Joe Rogan podcast?
I listen to Joe Rogan podcast all the time. I've
He
listened
moved.
to building this van. I've probably listened to probably over like 100 hours of Joe Rogan.
Yeah, so Joe Rogan and a lot of people are moving to Texas, California to Texas. Why do you think like that? What's the reason?
So Texas has very limited restrictions.
Okay.
And so when you come to America, there's two political parties for the most part. There's Republicans and Democrats. And Texas, for the most part, is very Republican.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're more conservative. But one thing that Texas, I think, is doing right is this idea of small government,
Mm-hmm.
which in India you should be familiar with. Is government does not do much. The government's really out of your life. They don't tax you that much. They don't regulate you that much, and they leave things kind of open. And so California and Texas are like basically Republican, Democratic.
Mm-hmm.
In California, it's big government, and they tax you a ton, and they regulate a ton. And so Joe Rogan, who's a multimillionaire, doesn't want to pay 60% of his taxes. So when you
Yeah.
think about 60%, like if you look at 10 months out of the year, 6 months of those years, you're just paying for someone else's shit.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of that. Now, obviously, we're in a 12-month, but that's just to break it down easily. And so, I don't know, it's just a lot of different ideas. And due to COVID and everything, like one thing that California had all the celebrity. You could meet anybody and everybody. You had a lot of opportunity. But now people don't care about, like Joe Rogan doesn't care about that. So he just moved to Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Austin, Texas is a very liberal part of Texas. And so it's much more in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just one of those things that, like, hell, I might move to Texas. Who knows?
Yeah.
I can't stand the heat and the humidity though. And I don't know. There's
Have you
nothing
been
beautiful in
there? Have you
Texas
been
at
to
all.
Texas?
Yeah, I have family in Dallas, Texas, and Houston.
There are lots
Dallas
of
is cool.
Indians are there, no? There are lots of Indians in Texas also.
Lots of Indians in Texas. Lots of Indians surprisingly right by me.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Indians in America.
Of course, there are a
That's
lot of them.
yeah, a lot of them. And so they go in pockets and whatnot. And so, like, if I search Indian restaurants by me right now, which I think now that we're talking, I think I need to go get Indian food today. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
necessary. But with these pockets and everything, there's a lot of Indian people in the like area. I have not been to Texas and noticed a lot of Indian people. I haven't been to Texas in a while though.
Mm-hmm.
In Colorado, there's a good amount of people, but there's tons of Indians. Period, huge population,
Yeah.
and so a lot of Indian people have been moving out. There's a woman who takes my classes, and her name is Pema, and she goes, or Hema rather, and she is from, starts with a CH, down in the south by Mysore.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Starts with a CH.
CH. Kochi.
Nah, not Kochi. That's K.
CH.
I don't
Chennai.
know.
Chennai.
Chennai. Yep,
Yeah.
Chennai. She's from
Yeah.
Chennai. And so we got a lot of people from India around here, which is pretty cool.
And mostly they are South Indians, I guess. I don't know. Kind of.
I have no idea. Just knowing how much money it probably costs, because like when I was out there, it was like 65 rupees to $1.
Mm.
So even getting a plane ticket to America has got to be so expensive.
Yeah, it is. Like so it is like plane ticket to US is I think 70,000, 60,000 above 60,000 rupees, I guess.
Rupees.
Yeah. 70,000
Yeah,
to
that
1
sounds
lakh.
about right.
Hmm.
Because I think that round trip, it was like $1,200 to $1,500 round trip in American dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you do that math, that's going to be, like you said, like 65 to 95 rupees,
Yeah.
95,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. There are lots of Indians who are
No.
rich, man. That is also true.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is there's a lot of Indians that do make a lot of money.
That's
So
the
it's
thing.
crazy when they're coming out here. They're driving Porsches. They have these big ass
Yeah.
houses. I'm like, get yourself some.
uh, what you went to. What is the difference between India and US? What is there any difference? Because when I met you, man, like I by talking to you, by hanging out with you, like I didn't see any difference, like you're just like a normal human, just like me, like means but did you find any difference, like in US and India? What's the difference that you have noticed?
India and America are very drastically, it's just how they're set up. And so one thing here is this, like how there's things are very clean, super clean. And so in India, when you walk into a restaurant, there's no actual doors for the most part. You just walk into this open space and
Yeah.
it's just a restaurant. In America, you walk in, there's a huge sign above, there's a door, you come in, everything's swept down and cleaned and super nice. In India, it's more like family owned stuff. And so I say the cleanliness, and besides that, I don't know. It's much different cultures. It really is. And so that's like the biggest thing is like when you come out here, you'll see just a whole different culture, which
Yeah.
was good for me because like going to India, it's like community was much more important. Is people in the community knew each other a lot more than if you come here in America, it's like most people don't even know their neighbors.
Yeah.
Have you traveled outside of India before?
I traveled to Nepal only. Have you been to Nepal? It's in the north.
How'd you like Nepal?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's covered with Himalaya. It's awesome. I
Yeah,
liked it.
that's what I've heard. Everybody that talks about the Nepal loves Nepal.
Yeah, there's Bhutan also, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that's like if I come out to India again, I'm going through Nepal for sure.
Yeah, Nepal is good.
Did you go to what's the capital of Nepal?
Kathmandu, yeah, I've been to Kathmandu.
Yeah, Kathmandu. Yep, that's right.
Pokhara is awesome. Pokhara is really beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a city in, yeah, in Nepal.
So in 10 years from now, where are you, Pushpak? What are you doing?
Ah, that's a tough question, man. If you could have asked me, if you if you would have asked me this before 2 years, I would have told you my entire plan. But I made a lot of plans in my life before 2 years, but none of that worked really. Like I missed, it didn't really work that way, which I expected. So
Yeah.
I really don't want to make any plans. Like I just want to live, man, live in the present.
Yeah.
This is what I learned
It's
in
not a
these
bad
two
gig.
years. Yeah, but yeah, I want to grow. Yeah, that's it. I grow in everywhere, like personally, professionally, money wise, wealth wise, financial wealth, mental wealth, everything, man. Like building good relationships with people, maybe travel around the world, and yeah, that's it.
Oh, well, that's not a bad gig at all. At least you want to grow. That's the whole thing, though, when we're in our 20s, we have big dreams, but it
Mm,
doesn't mean that we can't accomplish them. But
yeah,
sometimes when you're young, you want to do a lot of shit. So it's okay to fail. But living in the moment, obviously, as a yoga teacher, that's what you're supposed to do.
yeah. When are you getting married?
Me
Yeah.
getting married? I don't know, man. We'll see. Relationships are hard. Are you getting married soon? Are you still with that girl?
Bro, I'm not in North India, so now I'm not a North Indian. I'm not getting married for at least 10 years. And
10 years?
yeah, you said, I know, I remember you said in Goa, I'm gonna get married before you. But now I bet you, bro, you will get married before me.
We'll see, dude. So relationships are hard, but that's the whole thing is like, whatever happens, happens. Do I want to
Yeah,
have like a family and all that stuff? Yeah, one day. There's no point to rush it.
right. How old are you? You're
I
30.
am 30 years old now. I turned 30 in August. How old are you, Pushpak?
I'm 22.
Oh, you're a baby. You still have so much in front of you.
So what's your plan for next 10 years? Tell me.
My next plan for 10 years?
Yeah.
See, that's why I know this shit. All right. So for the next 2 to 3 years, travel in this van, see the United States, travel and teach yoga. And then when I come back, hopefully start or wherever, not even come back, but then eventually open up a studio. So maybe it's here in Colorado, or maybe I find somewhere else that I really love.
Mm.
And then open a studio. Once I open the studio, running, hold up, we just lost a headphone. Ugh. Once I open the studio, we're going to go through and run teacher trainings. Big thing here in all teacher trainings and in India is a 200 and 300 hour. The 200 hour is your base certification, 300 hours your advanced. And so I have both those certifications, but then you want to teach them. And so I'm co-leading teacher trainings right now here in America with another studio and like great people that I'm working with. And so eventually moving to my own platform and doing it in my own studio. And once that's up and running, that's probably when I want to raise my family. So I'll be at home, I'll be staying in one city for a long time, and then do that for a few years. And then let's say we're probably at 5-6 years from now. Once that's up and running, everything's running fine, then start traveling the world to teach.
Cool.
And
So
then once
means
we start traveling the world,
means you're getting married in after 5 years, right? That's what you're thinking.
we'll see. Yeah. Right now I'm fighting with my girlfriend. Sorry, Kayla, if you're reading this right now and you're listening to this, things aren't going that well. All right. So I don't want to talk about the marriage card at all. I think relationships are nothing but work and things can go well, but I don't want to, that M word freaks me out a little bit. And so I just want to be happy with somebody. And with Kayla, I'm extremely happy, even though we're fighting right now. Sorry, Kayla. Hopefully you don't listen to this.
If you want, I can edit that part because I'm going to edit a lot of things.
I don't care. No, leave it raw. Leave it raw. I don't care.
Okay.
Maybe there. I shouldn't say the next thing. Nothing. Not saying anything. Bit my tongue on that one, Pushpak.
uh, so like let's talk about relationship only, man. Like what?
Okay, we can talk about. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So what
Feeling
do you
sassy.
learn from a relationship? Like I think you can if you are in a relationship, you can learn a lot about yourself as well because I did. I think, and I think I'm not like I want to admit it. I was a toxic person. Like I was really toxic. I wanted to control a lot of things. I
Okay.
realized that by being in a relationship. Before that, I didn't knew myself, and then now I'm trying to be a better person. Like so. Yeah, that like I learned a lot, man. In a relationship, I learned a lot, but you just need to be with the right person, and boom, that's like, yeah. What do you think?
I think that every relationship teaches you something, and
Yeah.
that if you're willing to look at it and see it, then you're going to get something out of it. And so I've been in relationships previously where I'm the toxic person too. And then realizing, especially as a male, men like to dominate and control. And so, like you're stating that you're dominating and controlling, which is not something healthy to do. But you're also 22. You're a baby. Once
Yeah.
again, it's like one of those things that, like, it's good that you're recognizing that because there's many men that get in relationships or people, it doesn't have to be a binary relationship. But people who get in and they control, and if you don't see it, you're going to be 40, 50 years old doing the same stuff and not changing into a better person. And so when I think of every relationship I've been in, like big ones, it's that there's been huge learning lessons in all of them. And so I want to say, like, my first relationship was just learning how to be with somebody, especially the opposite sex, is understanding how women work.
Yeah.
Granted, I was in high school, so I was like 17 years old, but learning at 16, 17, learning how to be with somebody that's the opposite sex and communicating with them was very important. And then like next relationships, like I dated a girl and all we did is partied. So we went downtown and just drank and did all the stuff every Friday, Saturday night. And then I realized that I can't be in relationships that are only partying. And each one's just like, you learn something new. I think the most important thing is don't villainize it. So everyone, like, they get in a relationship and they're like, oh, I wish I never met that person, or that was a waste of my time. It
Yeah.
wasn't a waste of your time because you probably saw things in relationships that you want moving forward. So I like this quality. I love the fact that they're kind, compassionate, caring, and they always call me. But I didn't like the fact that you were jealous, possessive, and malicious. And so you take the things that you liked and you try to eliminate the things you didn't like into your next relationship. And relationships are all testing out things and seeing how things are going to work. And there's no set way of how things are going to work. Relationships are hard though. And so I don't know. It's interesting.
I don't think relationships are that hard. Like I don't know, man. Like I don't think that's hard. Like if you give each other the space, and like if you trust like each other, and if you're like-minded also, if you believe in something, that yeah man, like it happens. So I don't know, man. Why do you think relationship hard, bro? I couldn't
It's
agree on
dealing
that.
with somebody else. Because like, I don't know, in a perfect relationship, you meet somebody that you meet in the middle and you challenge each other. But 9 out of 10 times when you meet somebody else, they have their own bag of shit that you have to, like, in a perfect world, when you're single, you're like, I'll meet this person, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But when you meet somebody, you go through the honeymoon phase and everything's happy and, good and everything's positive. But then you realize, oh, this person does X, Y, and Z. So they do all of these different things,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't change somebody. You can influence them to be a better person, but you shouldn't change somebody. And so it gets hard because then it's this learning how to navigate different parameters and learning how to be respectful, learning when you're correct and you're wrong, learning how to be with the other person. I think it's challenging because I've been single for so long. It's much easier just to hang out by yourself. Is it lonely? Yes. Do you get sad at times? Yes. But relationships are hard because you have to meet in the middle. And
Yeah.
there's things that you have to sacrifice, and there's things that they have to sacrifice. And if they don't sacrifice them, then you get into the, like, it's very hard. That's why I call it hard, because then it gets into these intricacies of like, hey, can we make this last? Because when you're married for a lifetime, that's forever, obviously. And that's very hard. So a big thing in America, and I don't know if it's probably not as big in India, divorce is huge. So people get married, have a couple good years, have a couple shitty years, and they part out.
Mm.
Where back in more like traditional American culture, you don't get divorced. In Indian culture, that's not really a big thing. It's a newer thing, it sounds like.
Now
Some
it's
people,
happening, because now we are getting influenced by West. As I won't say that divorce is a reason of Western culture, but women also are getting more independent, and like it's not like earlier, man. Like feminism is growing. I'm not saying feminism is responsible for divorce, but
yeah,
like in like back in India, like if you like 10 years 15 years, like everything in the home woman is doing, like for taking care of kids, making food and everything. But now it is changing, right? Now that's not how it works. Now we are focusing on equality. Now Indians think we men and women are equal, and now we are in that direction. So divorce rates are growing in India a lot, as in last few years, I guess. Yeah.
and that's the whole thing. So the thing that, like, giving women empowerment is how many women in previous decades were in relationships with men that were just assholes. And now they have the empowerment not to be held down by a lot of that stuff, and they don't feel like they have to stay in a relationship because it's by religion.
Hmm.
And so I think anything in life is a pendulum, so it's always rocking. So for the longest time in marriages over here, where it's dominant, you have to do it. And now, since you can, like, okay, do it, now it's pendulum swinging the other way, which
Yeah.
it could be a little aggressive and like, things taken the wrong ways, but it's like it's that counterbalance that I was stuck here for so long that has to be over here. Because there's definitely people